Hi, this is Meredith from SheSwingsOnAStar.com, and today I have with me Stacy Yoakum from Love Day Nutritional Therapy. Stacy is a nutritional therapy practitioner, and she has used nutrition to help herself heal from rheumatoid arthritis. And now she dedicates herself to helping others with complex and chronic health issues to do the same. So welcome, Stacy. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, it's good to meet you.
Yes, well, I would like if you could just start off maybe by telling us a little bit about your personal journey with rheumatoid arthritis.
Well, first, I have to kind of go before the point I had rheumatoid arthritis because the things that happened to me as a baby, I found out is what impacted my having rheumatoid arthritis. So that might be helpful for the people watching. But as a baby, I had thrush, and all through my childhood and up until my early 20s, I had an issue with yeast, chronic yeast. And it was coming out in like the corners of my mouth, and, I noticed stomach issues when I would eat certain things. So that was one of the issues that I had. I also, as a teenager, or maybe around 12 or 13, I had a really bad case of pinworms, which is really gross, but I had that. I probably had it for over a year, and I was so embarrassed about what was going on, and I didn't understand, and, it's his teenage years, and so I probably had that for way too long, and, so that further affected my gut.
Yes.
Also had a very bad case of measles, even though I did have the measles vaccines. Measles is known to have some sort of, or is thought to have some sort of mimicking properties with the virus, and they associate that with rheumatoid arthritis issues also.
Oh, wow. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. I read about that in the GAPS book.
Okay, yeah.
So that, kind of all three of those things affected me throughout my entire life. And eventually, things just wore down enough where it started affecting my joints. The autoimmune issues were, affecting my joints. And then I probably wasn't diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis until my 30th birthday, even though I'd had very bad symptoms probably around my mid-20s. I tried all different types of medications. Well, they started me out on a antidepressant because they thought it was all in my head.
Oh, that's too familiar a story, right?
Yeah. And then eventually just tried all different types of medications, and I just experienced every side effect there was experience. The most successful medication that I had tried was the steroids and the steroid injections. So I knew what the symptoms were going to be from that, and just was able to live with the symptoms, and was just happy to be able to walk again and function again. So I did that for quite a few years, and had several broken bones from very minor falls that I now know were attributed to heavy steroid use. So I guess eventually I was diagnosed at 30, and then it wasn't until around 35 that I realized that it had something to do with diet. I'd gotten really sick with I believe it was strep throat, and I had just gotten divorced, and my family weren't nearby, and I was sick as a dog, and I had nobody to go to the store to buy me like ginger ale or, something like that you would normally drink when you had strep throat. So basically I lived off of water for 3 days. And after that 3 days, I was able to hop up out of bed with no swelling in my knees.
Wow.
Yeah. So at that point, I experimented with all kinds of different things. I really got into researching fasting and how that worked with the body. And, I researched the vegetarian diet, the fruitarian diet, like any kind of diet that, was different than what I was doing because, it had something to do with food. So, because basically as soon as I started eating again, my symptoms came right back.
Okay.
So, and I knew I had to eat.
Right.
I just had to figure out what to eat. So that's kind of what started my journey.
And how did you eventually come to, actually, maybe I should backtrack. Can you explain a little about what nutritional therapy is and how you got involved in that, or as for your own treatment?
Sure. Through this whole learning process of me trying to figure out what to eat or what not to eat, I was very sick and tired all the time and just had a very difficult time functioning. I had a family, I was working full time. So I had been looking on the internet for ways or recipes to do some batch cooking, because I decided it would be a really good idea to do all my cooking on Sunday for the whole week so I wouldn't be, exhausted for the week. And I came across Mickey Trescott's site and her book, The Autoimmune Paleo Diet. And then it was just kind of like the light bulb went off. Here I had basically somebody telling me what I should eat or what I could eat. And it was just a very easy to follow cookbook. And, even though that cookbook was not the answer to all of my problems, it gave me a starting point.
Okay. And I will link to these things below below the video. Yeah.
So it just gave me a starting point. And I, eventually did feel better. Prior to that cookbook, I had been to another doctor out of state, and he'd kind of gotten me on the right path, but I was still having issues. That doctor was encouraging me to eat things like a rice protein and some peas. Peas were like really in my diet. I didn't realize that they were a legume.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just like green peas.
Yeah. So I had thought that they were just like a vegetable, and they were fine. But I found out that through this, the AIP diet, that those were, two of my big triggers. And really after, I started feeling better on AIP, I was able to identify some of my other big triggers. And so it took me about a year through that whole process. But
and just to clarify, for anyone who doesn't know, the AIP is the Autoimmune Paleo Protocol, as Stacy referenced before.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of foods on the AIP protocol that I can't eat. So it is just a starting point.
Okay, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit more as we go on. And so the nutritional therapy, I mean, that's a field unto itself, is it not?
Yeah, sorry, I was going to explain.
That's okay.
So nutritional therapy, that's how I found out about the Nutritional Therapy Association.
Okay.
And it is very different from any kind of other like nutritional counseling, because they go through all of your symptoms, and the process of going through your symptoms, you're able to identify things that you're feeling that you may have just been ignoring your whole entire life. So just that whole process. So typically there's a questionnaire called a nutritional assessment questionnaire. It's over 300 questions, and it goes over all kinds of symptoms, like if you have brittle nails, like to the more obvious ones of constipation, hair loss, if you have cracks right here in the corners of your mouth, and all kinds of symptoms. So that helps us narrow down what parts of the body are most that need most support. So if it's your liver gallbladder that needs support, or your sugar handling, or your digestion as far as like your small intestine, or is it your large intestine, is it your stomach? So it helps to narrow down where to start, where your issues are, because each person is dealing with another, something different than someone else. You can't just have a diet that's going to meet the needs of everyone. If one person has a liver that's not processing toxins or is just overloaded with toxins, you're gonna help that boost that liver for that person, whereas somebody else, may have the same symptoms but have a different root cause. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think it kind of speaks to an issue I see come up sometimes with some of my students, in that they may try a particular diet and they don't really see a difference, but maybe there is something else going on. And then with the help of a professional, they could maybe get to why it's not exactly working. It's not necessarily, diet doesn't matter, or this doesn't work for me. They have to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. So there may be some symptoms, some things going on that you just wouldn't connect with, an organ that's not functioning like it should be.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you. So one question that I have, and this maybe it's a little bit of a loaded question, but how important do you think diet is as part of a healing lifestyle? Like, is it a deal breaker that you'd have to change your diet? A little controversial.
Yeah, I feel like, when it comes to diet, it's all about the individual.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think that our body is not made to handle processed foods, sugars, and highly refined like flours and stuff like that on a regular basis. I think in small amounts it's fine, but in our culture we've overdone those certain foods too much. We've overdone it on the sugar, overdone it on the grains, overdone it, with corn. Our body can't handle that. And once you overdo it on something, you need a break.
Right.
The bodies will eventually say, I can't handle any more of this, and I need a break.
Okay. So then at that point, do you usually suggest that everyone does some sort of elimination diet? Is that part of your protocol?
Well, I suggest people work towards avoiding sugar and processed foods, for sure.
So that's a good place to start.
Yeah. And then the grains are another big one. Like people just overdo grains big time. So most people can't handle them. And it may not necessarily be the gluten in the grains. It's just the grains in general across the board. And so once we do like a little bit of an elimination, usually for 21 days, that's pretty good. You can do something called the Coca Pulse test. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, but could you explain a little bit about that?
The Coca Pulse test is a test that what you do is you put a piece of food in your mouth. You don't swallow it, but you take your heart rate or your pulse before you put the food in your mouth, and then you keep the food in for 30 seconds, and you spit it out, and then you take your pulse again for another full minute. And if your pulse goes up 6 beats for that minute, then you're most likely sensitive to that food.
Interesting. I've heard of it, but I haven't tried it, so I think I need to try that now.
It is kind of a pain, but it definitely, if some people are really in touch with their body, they'll notice flushing. If they eat a certain thing, they'll notice flushing in their cheeks or a reaction immediately. But this is another way to test that.
That's great. And you brought up a good point there. Is one thing that I try to teach in my yoga classes and that practice is really starting to get more and more in touch with your body, because it can reveal so much, the more aware that we are. And a lot of us really aren't that aware. Especially I think if we have chronic illness, a lot of times you want to separate yourself, from your body, because you're just trying to get through the pain or whatever else you're going through. But really, when we can kind of increase that connection, it can be very powerful for healing.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see here. One of my students had asked a question regarding someone who is going through an autoimmune flare, where they're flaring up, whether it's, fibromyalgia or arthritis or whatever, what would you recommend in that case? Is there anything generalized that someone could do?
I always like to do like the Epsom salt bath.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have success with the turmeric. I know.
Okay. Yeah.
I've done turmeric.
Yeah, it doesn't help me, but yeah. That's why we're all different, right?
Yeah, we are all different. So, I mean, I think it's all about finding out your sensitivities and then healing your gut.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long, you said a 21-day elimination. Do you have, can you give kind of a ballpark with how long it might take someone to heal their gut?
Well, I feel like within a few days, your gut will heal if it doesn't have anything to irritate it.
Interesting.
So the length in time is determining what those sensitivities are.
Okay,
so
right.
That's what the time consuming part is.
Mm-hmm.
Your small intestine is like one layer of skin. It's very thin. Like your actual hand, the skin on your hand is like 7 layers of cell. I guess it's cellular layers, right? Mm-hmm. So it's much thicker. So
right.
So there's a lot of, it can heal fairly quickly,
mm-hmm.
but it's just a matter of, getting rid of all the sensitivities. It's very difficult to determine your sensitivities, and you can't just go to a doctor and have them test you for allergies, because that's just not as accurate as the elimination. You'll know after 21 days if you give up dairy. Then you eat dairy on the 21st day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you will really be sick.
And one of my questions is in regards to what are some common pitfalls that you see when people undertake an elimination diet. And I think reintroductions is probably one of those areas where it gets a little murky. Do you have any comments about that?
I'm always like really bad at reintroductions, to be honest. I don't do it the way, you're supposed to do it, because I feel like I just want to enjoy it. I haven't had that food in 21 days. Maybe it's 6 months, and I'm going to have it and I'm going to enjoy it. And if I get a flare, it'll last for 4 days. That's fine. I enjoyed it. But I know in 4 days it's going to go away, because, I'm just going to have to eliminate it again and then try it again in 6 more months. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I do it.
Okay. Well, at least though. That's the thing. How I have gotten hung up in the past about reintroductions is I want to reintroduce too much too soon. So you really have to be methodical and just do one thing at a time. Yeah. I feel.
I mean, if you're, it's terrible, because pizza's like
everything,
the sauce and the cheese.
Yeah. Do you think that once a person eliminates their triggers, heals their guts, has an improvement in their symptoms, do you think they can eat those foods again if that they are known triggers, or is it really eliminating for a lifetime?
No, I think they can. I mean, to be honest, I probably eat my trigger foods at least, once a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, and sometimes I do have a little bit of swelling, and I'm okay with that, because, I'm going to enjoy life. And
okay.
So I do put up with a little bit of swelling here and there, but I still consider myself as being, having a reversal of my rheumatoid arthritis. I just can't do whatever I want every single day of the week, but I do still enjoy my trigger foods occasionally.
Mm-hmm. I think that's reassuring for a lot of people, because thinking of giving something up forever is daunting, and then they might not start because of that. But a moderate approach really is the way to ensure longevity.
And I'm very motivated by how I feel. So if it makes me feel bad, then I'm not going to do it. If it makes me feel a little bad, I might do it. If it makes me feel really bad, I'm not going to do it.
Right. Okay, that's great. Okay, and another question, a little bit off the topic from diet, but have there been other changes that you've made in your lifestyle that have made a difference in your healing?
Yeah, I think a big thing to do is to eliminate as many chemicals as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of chemical cleaners, air fresheners, candles, perfumes, cosmetics, deodorants.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else are the big ones? I feel like all those types of things have that increased burden. I still have an issue when I go to hotels. I
Mm-hmm.
will have really bad symptoms. It will almost feel like my collarbone is broken.
Oh, wow.
And I won't smell anything, or
Mm-hmm.
I won't think, but just being around all those people with perfumes and
Yeah.
whatever cleaners they use and that type of thing, that it still affects me. So, when I am in those situations, I take some supplements to help my liver flush out my toxins. So,
Okay.
and
Yeah, I have the same kinds of reactions, only I can smell everything. Like
yeah,
hypersensitive to the smells.
I'm very much like that also. So it really drives me crazy when I
Yeah.
can't smell anything and I'm still getting sick.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. Well, thank you. So my last question really is, how can someone work with you? Where are you located, first of all, and what are the different ways that people can work with you?
Well, I can work with them in my office. My office is in Pocono Lake. My business name is Love Day Nutritional Therapy, and they can check me out on lovedaynutritionaltherapy.com, or they can call me at 570-972-9500.
Now, for people, Pocono Lake is in Northeast Pennsylvania, but you do also work with people remotely in other parts of the country, correct?
Yeah, I can work with you online. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, wonderful. This was really helpful, Stacy. It was great to have you here. And, some of the things you mentioned, I'll make sure are linked below the video. And if anyone has any questions, I just encourage you to reach out to Stacy. So thank you so much for being here.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.